Looking for his 100. And finds his 100.
When someone scores a century, this is how we usually react. But there is one recently scored century on which our reactions were something more like this.
जब मुसीबतें आती है तो सब साथ में आती है ही वैसे।
Exactly, already burdened with farm protests, financial crisis, and COVID pandemic, this newly made century has only added injury to the wounds. It was scored by none other than crude oil prices reflect the market's volatile and liquid nature, as well as oil being a benchmark for global economic activity. It impacts a lot. Fuel prices have been hiked by oil marketing companies for 11 straight days. India, being the third largest importer of oil in the world, can clearly feel the heat. In some regions, it is also being heard that people are crossing the borders to smuggle petrol from Nepal in order to get it at a lower or a cheaper price. Topic has come up, let's find out some of those many reasons why fuel or petrol prices rise. Global crude oil prices have been increasing after Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries OPEC Plus and its allies including Russia decided to continue the cuts in supplies.
फ्यूज कंडक्टर निकाल लिए हैं।
One of the first and major factor which directly impacts the cost of fuel price is crude oil price. Lower the production and higher the demand. This was one of the main reasons why fuel prices shot up. The low production by oil producing companies as the demand went down due to the global COVID-19 pandemic. As the country started recovering and life returning to normal, the demand started increasing. However, the supply still being the same as it was a few months back, it clearly had an impact in the rise of the fuel price. Second factor is the freight charges, though not a major factor, but it always has a role to play in the overall cost of the fuel rise. Now, what are freight charges or logistics? Imported fuel or any crude oil that needs to be imported from one country to another, the transport is nothing but through ships. The rise in the fuel prices also increases the rise in the rates of these particular freight charges or logistics. The next factor that we are going to talk about are refineries. Any fuel, be it petrol or diesel, etc., are not directly imported in that form. Instead, they are imported as crude oil or heavy oils, which are required to be converted to a consumed state of fuel such as petrol. This is where refineries step in. So, refineries also add up to the total cost increase of the fuel. The next major factor are oil marketing companies. Oil refining and marketing companies are most of the time the same companies in order to reduce the cost to them and gain the margin profits. They usually maintain crude oil inventory up to 6 weeks, which also influences the price of the petrol and petroleum products. Rupee to dollar exchange rate. This is one more crucial factor that decides the rise of fuel. As and when rupee value depreciates in the global market, the fuel prices shoot up as we have to buy the fuel in dollars instead of rupees from the importing countries. So even a single dollar rise greatly affects and impacts of fuel prices which are brought or converted then into rupees when we buy from the market. India imports almost 85% of its fuel needs. Prices of many commodities are always expected to go up due to the rise of fuel, and whose burden ultimately falls again on the end consumer, the people of the country. Last but very important factor are taxes, excise duty and VAT. Excise duty is controlled by the central government and VAT is controlled by the state government. As we already discussed, the retail selling price of petrol in India is based on the crude oil price, the OMC margin, the transportation costs or the freight costs, the central government taxes, state government taxes, excise duty and other taxes. Now, this last part plays a very important role. Why a petrol or diesel is not under the GST due to the following examples. Now, if you look at this particular table which shows the price breakup for petrol and diesel in New Delhi is by the 2018 reports, the price to the dealers excluding the excise and VAT is around 35 rupees. Excise by that is the central government tax is around 19.48. Then the dealer commission is around 3.6, around 4 rupees, and then the VAT which is collected by the state governments is around 15.72. so the final retail selling price comes around 74 rupees, and similar thing applies to diesel, which comes around to 65 rupees. So now if you actually look at these prices, the actual price was around 35 rupees, and finally when it comes to the consumer it's around 75 rupees. So it's almost 100% increase. If at all the petrol and diesel rates were brought under GST, the following example will clarify the things for us, that the prices would dramatically fall. Even under a 28% tax slab under GST, the petrol would still cost only around 50 rupees and diesel would also cost around somewhere around 51 rupees. So if you go through this particular table here, the prices to dealers excluding excise and VAT would be around 35, the CGST which is the central government tax would be around 5, then the dealer commission is around 4, state government tax would be around 5, then finally the retail selling price is around 49 or 50 rupees. So finally the change from the current retail price will be around minus 35 rupees. These were the major factors which actually impact the rise of fuel prices or the petrol prices in any country, and especially in India the last section plays a very major role, that is the taxes. Hopefully our governments bring this under the GST system in order to reduce the burden on the final consumer, that is the people of the country. If you have any other reasons or any other factors which you think have on the fuel prices rise, do mention in the comment section.